We are live, and in today's video, we're gonna talk about crypto taxes. Are you a citizen in the US or Canada? Definitely don't want to miss this. Coming up after the intro.
Hey, yeah, it's all about wealth engineering. Might be something that you're not used to. It's okay, cause I'm here to introduce you to concepts. Time to grow and make big moves. All about crypto, come see. Stocks and business, yes indeed. Got the info that you need. Hosted by my homie JC. Hey, yeah, wealth engineering. Stacking and stacking it up. It's time to generate wealth. Till you living like Scrooge McDuck. Hey, wealth engineering. It's time to show you the game. Till you living like Richie Rich. Till you ballin' like Bruce Wayne. Hey, you ain't gotta be an expert, no problem. It don't really matter where you at, just start it. It'll take time, hard work, and
What's up, guys? This is JC, and welcome to the Wealth Engineering Podcast. If you're new here, I create content to motivate you and increasing your net worth, retire early, and build generational wealth. And how do we do that, guys? By investing in stocks, crypto, real estate, and business for the purpose of making, keeping, and multiplying money. And with all that said, guys, I have something very looking forward to do this stream, guys, because as I mentioned, making money, but the hardest part to do is to keep that money, right? And one of the largest expenses that we do have is taxes. Taxes. I live in Canada, so you can understand where I'm coming from when I say taxes are hurtful, right? They're high. So if you understand how to build wealth and you want to be efficient, you got to look at it at all aspects. It's not about how much money you make. It's also about how much money you keep and multiply. But the more money you keep, the more you can multiply. So, with that said, we're going to dive deeper into it. And I'm going to invite someone on the panel that can talk a little bit about it. Just to start first, before I invite that person, I wanted to say, hey, we'll be looking for your questions on the chat. I know it's late. I know a lot of you guys are sleeping, but hey, also I know some of you sent me some questions in private. I'll be make sure to address those questions. But if you also have questions in the chat that you want to know more about it, they're welcome. And with that said, you can also watch it in replays. You're welcome. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Mr. Wealthy Expat. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. Thank you for having me here. And obviously, it's a little bit late for you, US and Canada people. I'm in Dubai, so it's about 9 or 12 hours ahead of wherever you are. If you're in the East Coast, then it's 9. If you're in the West, then it's 12. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to tell you how to lower your taxes. Obviously, legally, we're not going to talk about hiding money or stashing money offshore. It's all about structures, different strategies you can use depending on what country you come from. So you can lower your taxes. We've helped people all the way from $5,000 saving in taxes all the way to $500 million saving in taxes. So we want to make sure we talk about all the strategies that everybody at any level can use, and also things you can keep in mind. Maybe you're growing your business very quickly. Maybe you have $100,000 net worth, but your business is generating 50 to 100,000 in profit every single month. You're going to get a very heavy tax bill at some point. So you want to make sure that you're protected. It's better to prepare 1 year before than it is to do it the day after. So.
Absolutely. You know what? I'm not even at that level yet, but I'm planning to be, and I'm kind of like want to know as much as possible so that I can get the foundation ready, so that when that level comes, we are ready. But hey, thank you very much for coming. And for those who don't know, he has a YouTube channel. I'll be adding the links on the description as well. The links will be on the chat later. Make sure you subscribe. He's doing very great content, guys. He'll come back soon, but he's doing very great content. Lots of content when it comes to information that you can get from how to save taxes. Whether you're a crypto investors or interested in business, beautiful content about Dubai and other countries that we can learn. So that's actually shout out to Cashflow Hunter. He was the one who sent me or share me one of your videos. Someone in my Discord, he was like, "Yeah, this we're learning about saving taxes," and it was the inspiration for this stream today. So I really wanted to shout him out, and I know he will be watching and replay. I know. So before we go dive deeper in the topic, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about yourself. I mean, I know roughly you mentioned that what you do for helping people, but on a nutshell, like how what do you do? Like, could you talk a little bit more about what do you do currently, or is it just one business? Do you have multiple business? Like, what do you a little bit more about yourself, please?
So I started around 7 years ago, just making some money here and there. So I started through Upwork, which is a place that a lot of freelancers they go to, made $20 here, $50 there. And then I got a job through Upwork working for a Spanish company or Latino company. And then I was making about 1,500 a month through that. So I wasn't paying any taxes back then. It was just very little income, but I was traveling all over the world. I knew that I had to make more money. So then I started making about $5,000, $6,000 a month. Then I started 10, 15, 20 with e-commerce. So e-com was my main business that made me the most money, basically drop shipping from China. And then I started teaching people how to drop ship from China, and then that blew up. So we had a
Mm.
pretty big YouTube channel doing that. I got
Oh,
quite
really?
burned out doing that. So I did a lot of that. We had over 1,000 private students. We helped people get to 6 figures, 7 figures. We did a lot in that space. But then I
Hmm.
just got truly burnt out. I didn't want to do that business anymore. And I was paying a ton of money in taxes for that business. So I paid over 100 grand in taxes in a one payment to the IRS, to the tax department in the US. And I knew I'm gonna have to do something about this. I'm not gonna keep paying 6 figures to the IRS. Could have
Whew.
gone, could have gone and bought something much better. So
Mm.
then I moved to Dubai. And when I say move, and excuse me for that use of that phrase, it doesn't mean you need to actually move completely to Dubai. So I just say move my business to Dubai.
Mm.
So I essentially have my business, my finances, all my accounts in Dubai, which is in the United Arab Emirates. If you don't know, it's a zero tax place. They do have a tax coming up next year. Probably it's not going to go through. And it doesn't affect anybody selling digitally. So if you move to Dubai, again, move your business to Dubai, your bank accounts, everything like that, and you get out of whichever country you're from, US, Canada, Australia, UK, and then you move to Dubai, then you won't pay any taxes. So you're essentially paying 0% tax, and it's completely legal as long as back home you deal with whatever your tax system demands of you. Because the US, for example, I'm a US citizen. I was born in Puerto Rico. And as US citizens, there's no way to really pay 0% tax unless you go through extra lengths, like, for example, renouncing your US citizenship, which to
Mm.
some people it might sound insane to renounce U.S. citizenship, but that is something that you might do. So I
Yeah,
essentially started making little. Then I made a lot. Then I paid a lot in taxes, and now I'm doing helping
yeah.
people pay less taxes.
Once our income gets to a certain level, it really change your perspective. I understand that. But before we get too deep on the technical too, I wanted to understand more. So you did mention that did you start that business in Puerto Rico when you were a freelancer? Was
No,
was it in the States?
that was in Germany actually. So I moved
Oh, you
at
travel.
18 years. Yeah, when I was
Wow.
18, I booked a ticket to Germany. I wanted to get out of Puerto Rico. Puerto
Mm,
Rico is great, but for local people, even if you're not local, even if you're just living there for a while, it
mm,
does get. It's just a small island. People are very. We call them crabs in a bottle. So basically, like if somebody tries to get out of the island and pursue a better career and be successful,
mm.
people try to pull you back. It's a very weird culture there, which I didn't like. I love my island. I'm proud of being Puerto Rican, but it's not something I wanted to live my whole life there. And
I
also,
understand.
people are leaving Puerto Rico because infrastructure is not great. We do have a lot of hurricanes, so I wanted to get out of there. So 18 years old, booked a ticket to Germany, moved to Germany. I thought it was the best thing in this world. And then in Germany, I wanted to study medicine for some reason, and I didn't end up going through that. I just started making some money online, and I wanted to travel the world. Traveling is my passion. I've been to 62 countries, something like that, right now, and I want to
Wow.
keep traveling. I love it.
Well, if you don't mind me asking, like you don't have to be specific in terms of age, but I mean, you look young. You look like with the square jaw and all that. Maybe I don't know if you do the gym, but like, what are we saying? 30, 35, less 20, 25. Like, what age range would you fit in?
24. I'm turning
Wow.
25 in 3 months. Yeah.
Sheesh. Well, so 62 countries from 18 to 24. Oh, you've
Yeah.
been traveling. That's crazy. So you've learned a lot throughout the world. Crazy, and some of that is translating to what you also offering as a service, and we'll get into that now. So I understand. I understand. And I wanted to ask you this question too, and I always ask this question to all my guests. looking back in the Puerto Rico days when you were in high school, what around that time, what do you think you were going to do in terms of a career? You did mention medicine, but in terms of making money, like were you already thinking about traveling and entrepreneurship back then, or did something happen where you decided to switch your mindset from the traditional 9 to 5 jobs to actually traveling and be an entrepreneur?
I wanted money, to be honest. It was at that when I was maybe 15, 16, for example, my dad drove like a super old Toyota and it was broken all the time. And
Mm,
my friends, I started in a pretty good school because I got a scholarship to study in that school. And my friends all had, Maseratis, BMWs, Mercedes. And I looked at that and I wanted that. And I had a friend, his dad had a yacht, like a $5 million yacht. And I
mm,
wanted that. And now that I have more money, I don't spend it like a crazy person, but I did always want that. It was something that was always in the back of my mind. Like I always want to explore a better life. And that slowly started changing as I got, I mean, a little bit older, like maybe 1 or 2 years older. When I hit 17, 18, it wasn't as much as let me buy as many luxury things as possible. It was more about I just want enough money that I can travel the world and not starve, basically.
mm,
And I got to that point because I remember I was in Croatia. I had like $50 in my bank account. And every end of the month, I had like maybe $20, $30 in my bank account. But I was going to a new country every week. And that was
yeah.
my dream life. Like that was what I wanted to do. I was in all over Europe, Asia, Latin America, like everywhere.
Mm,
And I had very little money saved up, basically nothing. And my friends told me about Bitcoin. They were like, buy Bitcoin. I'm like, no, I have absolutely no money to do that. I'm
mm,
traveling. Should have listened to them. But at that point, it was more about let me just travel. And now I still think about that. Let's say that, we do have two YouTube channels that I have things that I can fall back on. I have a lot of staff that can help me. So I don't think at any point I'm going to have the same situation where I'm going to have $50 in my bank account. But if I do get to that point, as long as I continue traveling, I can give up my rent. I can give up my fancy things. I can give up my luxury. So I could give everything up just to continue traveling. And I think
absolutely.
that'll never stop. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And very quickly, shout out to Peter Investor M. Salute to you, sir, for the $5 super chat, and thank you for coming here. Now, looking back, because you've learned a lot throughout these years, and shout out to you, man. Shout out to you for taking the initiative. It could be a challenge, like could stop a lot of people, the unknown, right? And for you to actually go there and learn along the way, shout out to you for actually making that step, and you've been very successful in amount of time. So shout out to you for that. Actually, for me, I wanted the high fancy cars, but I waited until 30 before I actually started changing my mindset and doing the steps, which is why I'm doing streams like this so that people can learn it a lot earlier, right? So looking back at the days you were in high school, that you were thinking about money, all the travels you have made, the success, even paying the IRS, and then the knowledge you have with what you're teaching right now and making more money from that. What would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned so far?
Ooh, you got to take control of everything at some and take control of what you can, and then do as much as possible to change it. So, for example, you can't change your tax rate. If you're in Canada and you're paying 42%, you're not going to elect a better mayor, a better president to change the tax rate. And
Mm,
that's something big. So for example, you're not going to change the market. Right? If you're trying to be a YouTuber, if you're trying to be an investor, you can't make bad videos. You can't make low quality videos. You can't trade. So for example, something that one of my friends was doing, he was trading Bitcoin on leverage, on like high margin, drunk. Right. And he was like,
oh,
"Oh, why am I losing money?" And I'm like, dude, because you're trading drunk. So there's
on
certain you
leverage? Oh,
there's certain things that you can't change. There's nature, and then there's what you can control. So you can't control your tax rate, but you can control where you live, who you spend time with,
mm,
where you go, where do you have your company. And these things all take effort. So you can't control how the market responds to your offer, but you can make your offer 10 times better. You can make your videos extremely high quality. And that was also something when it came to making money, because maybe people watching this channel, they just want to make some money, or they want to learn how to grow their business. Back then, I was trying to grow a YouTube channel with absolutely trash quality. The content was terrible, and I thought, why am I not getting views? And now I see, like, yeah, it was just absolute trash. And I look at those videos and I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't even watch this.
Mm.
So there's certain things that you can't control and there's certain things that you can. You push as much as possible for the ones that you can control, and then you just let other things complement your
Of
work and your
course.
effort. Yeah.
Hey, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I see it the same way as you. Focus on what you can control, and from there, let it go and do as much as you can. Like give it your best and go from there. Absolutely. Well, we're going to dive deep in the question, guys. For those who are walking in new, we are going. Your questions are welcome in the chat for our guests, and I have a list of questions too. I know some people did send me questions in private to ask, so I'll do my best. But let's get into it. So I wanted to start with an easy one first, right? So what are secrets? What are your secrets to find tax consultants and accountant? That can help you reduce those taxes, right?
This is
Legally.
a this is a big problem, right? Because there's two types of tax consultants. There's the ones that, oh, you can't do anything, just pay up. It doesn't matter. And then there's the other ones that are borderline very shady. So for example, I've had tax accountants that say, this is technically a personal expense, but let's put it under business. Why not? And there's some accountants that are like that because they want you to like them. They want to
Of
reduce your tax.
course.
And you have to be very careful on both sides, because then there's some accountants. For example, I was talking to a couple from Canada last night. They're making millions of dollars through Amazon FBA. They're absolutely crushing it, and they're making more, like they're doubling their revenue every 2 months. It's insane how much they're growing. They're making now 3 million a month in profit. And they were talking to an accountant in Canada, and the accountant said, yeah, just go to Dubai for like a month, say that you live there, start your company there, come back to Canada, and then just run everything through Dubai. And I told him, if you do that, you're going to prison. Like basically you're committing like a federal Canadian crime. So you would not want to do that. So there's two different types of accountants. There's the ones that don't know anything, and then there's the ones that are too shady. So you have to find one in the middle. I would say find one that is, let's say, aggressive in lowering your taxes, but also they want to keep everything very clean. So they want to keep everything like, what does the IRS, for example, in the case of the US, what does the CRA in the case of Canada think about this transaction? Okay,
Mhm.
it's technically a personal expense, technically a business expense. You know what we can do? Let's split it 50-50. 50% business, 50% personal. You have to find somebody like
Absolutely.
that. It's extremely hard. I would say if you want to find good people like that, it's all through contacts. I mean, you're not going to find them on Google. You're not going to find them on, it's very unlikely you'll find them on a YouTube channel, something like that. Because my accountant, he responds to you in like 4 days, because the guy's just, his inbox is blown up every day by multimillionaires and billionaires that are asking for tax advice. And
Yeah.
people like that. It's more about, asking you, hey, JC, who can I get as an accountant? And then maybe JC asks me, and then maybe I ask like a guy that's making even more money, and then he tells me. So you have to make good contacts. That's just the only way. So go to networking meetups, go to events in crypto, for example. You'll meet a lot of good tax guys, and that's really how you find them. There's not really any secret.
Awesome. Hey, I'm happy. I started with that, but man, just dropping gems already. Dropping gems already. That's so true. So true. I remember as I started my business, I had this. I wasn't even making that much money, and I already saw that advice, right? And then those advice later on, 2 years down the line, I had to catch up, and because I didn't close my business properly and all that, so I had to do, and it cost me a lot more. So sometimes when you try to cut corners, it's going to cost you a lot more. And if you can find someone that can help you, and then yeah, you can definitely be legal, be make sure you go on the right step, that you're not going to have more money to pay in the long term, and also it's costing you more time to figure it out. So you want to make sure you start on the right path. So thank you for answering that, for sure. And while we have you here, I wanted to throw that question also, because I know this is a question that will come up as we go through. What would be the difference between citizenship and residency? And when it comes to, because you say you're wealthy expat, so we're talking about expatriation. You already mentioned it earlier that you may have to consider that if you want to move in. What is the main difference generally, and what are the pros and cons, would you say, are between from each of these parts?
So, for example, if you're a citizen of anywhere in the world except the US, you mainly tax on residence. So it only matters where you live. That's where you pay tax. It's to keep it very clean, where do you live? You pay tax. Where is your home? You pay tax. Where is your bank accounts? Where is your center of life? Where do your kids go to school? That's the country where you pay tax.
Mm.
When it comes to US citizens, we pay tax on citizenship because the US is the best country in the world, and therefore they need to tax us all like little slaves. So we basically pay tax no matter where we go, unless you create different structures that can benefit you and can pay zero tax. So at some point, for example, last year I paid zero tax. I paid, well, that's not true. I paid about 30,000 in tax compared to what I would have paid, which is about 500,000. So I lowered it down to less than 10% of that by having a structure that basically creates a zero tax setup. But I
Mm.
used a lot of money for personal expenses. I did kind of live a luxurious life last year. So those can't be deducted. Those need to
Yeah.
be paid up. So I
Yeah.
did pay some tax because of that. But then when it comes to other US citizens that are doing, for example, crypto investing, I do a lot of crypto. I haven't sold any of my crypto. I have my Bitcoin in a ledger. They're stored away forever until Bitcoin goes to a million. But the people that are trading Bitcoin, they pay capital gains every time they trade.
Hmm.
And it doesn't matter where they live. A US citizen could live anywhere in the world. He could be in an island in the middle of the Pacific. He still pays taxes back to the US on all capital gains as if he lived in the US.
Mm.
So the only way to get rid of that is by renouncing US citizenship. And at some point, I mean, I know you're Canadian, but at some point, I think Canada, Germany's already flirting with it. I was talking to a German guy yesterday, and he was showing me basically news in German of a German party that's wanting to do German citizenship taxes.
Taxes. Oh,
So
it's
basically,
coming, man.
if you were,
To be honest with you, I'm not sure, but I have to check again. I think Canada is like that too. I think Canada is very much like the US, and like they might tax you per for citizenship as opposed to where you live. But man, I hope they don't. But because
yeah,
I'm going to look into that too. But yeah, it's very interesting. So that gives a clear definition, like not definition, but at least the pros and cons of citizenship and residency. Because in that case, for US citizens specifically, it matters, right? Which title you have, because that title can follow you regardless of where you go, whether you spend 10, 20, 30 years. And yeah, so that's a problem right here. So and that's going to be a perfect leading to my next question, which is how do US or Canadian citizens pay 0% tax legally?
so if you're from, so let's divide US and then everybody else, because if you're watching from anywhere in the world, then it applies the same as Canada. So for example, if you're Canadian or UK or European, whatever you are, the only thing you need to do is basically cut your ties to your main country. So if you're in Canada and you have a house in Canada, you have two kids in Canada, you have bank accounts in Canada, you have a company in Canada, you need to basically create those ties somewhere else. And then you need to physically leave. So for example, you're not going to go and have kids in Dubai. That's not what I'm saying. But you're going to go and create a company in Dubai, have bank accounts in Dubai, close your bank accounts in Canada. If you need payment processors, for example, I know people that are doing e-commerce consulting and they need money coming in through Stripe. Dubai Stripe sucks. So what you want to do is create a US LLC. US LLCs owned by people that are not in the US are not taxable. So you create a US LLC. That US LLC receives money through Stripe and PayPal. Then it sends money to the UAE company. This is all
Mhm.
legal, by the way, completely legal. The US LLC pays zero tax. The UAE company pays zero tax. Your domicile is Dubai and the
Mhm.
UAE. Therefore, you don't pay absolutely any taxes. But you have to make sure that you spend as little time as possible in Canada. So you want to spend less than 90 days a year in Canada. You don't want to have a
That's okay.
permanent home in Canada. You don't want to, your kids can't go to school in Canada. Like you can't really benefit from social services because you're not paying taxes anymore. So you're technically not entitled to them. That
Nice.
applies all over the world. All countries work like this. It's
Oh,
taxed on
okay.
residence, except the US. So you're taxed on citizenship. So the only way is by creating a company abroad, like in Dubai. The great thing about being a US citizen is that you don't need to live anywhere. You could be a week in a different country all over the world. As long as you have a Dubai company, you don't pay regular tax rates. You pay 10.5% maximum. So you can make $1 billion. You pay 10.5%. That's the cap. But the problem is capital gains. So if you run a business that you could sell it at some point, if you trade crypto, if you trade stocks, those are all taxed as regular capital gains rates, personal income rates, everything like that. Any money you take out of the company is taxed as personal income. If you go and buy yourself a Mercedes, that 100,000 gets taxed as personal income. So a US citizen can lower down business income not personal or capital gains. And capital gains gets taxed just like regular US residents. So you're basically screwed. If I have some US citizens that are like, oh, I day trade stocks and I make like 5K a day in profit. I'm like, well, the only way to really get out of this is by giving up your US passport, getting a second passport. And I would definitely recommend it because there's a lot of US citizens that their grandparents came from, I don't know, Germany, Netherlands, Norway, Ireland, anywhere in the world, or maybe even like Jamaica, places like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what you want to do is get other citizenships. I didn't have that opportunity, so I bought one. So you can literally buy a passport. It cost me 150,000, less than what I paid the IRS, and they basically gave me a citizenship. I'm a citizen of a new country. It's called Saint Kitts and Nevis. They've been doing this for multiple decades. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to renounce U.S. citizenship. So the problem with renouncing U.S. citizenship is that the embassies don't allow it around this part of the world. So I'm flying to Mexico City in April, and in Mexico City, I'm renouncing. So it's hard
Wow.
for a U.S. citizen, but for anybody else in the world, all you pretty much have to do is move to a zero tax place, establish your company there. And if you're single, for example, which it does get easier if you're single or if you don't have kids,
Yeah,
you
for
can
sure.
travel all over the world. So you could have your base in Dubai, have a long-term rental, have your bank accounts, have your company in Dubai. As long as you spend very little time back in Canada, you could spend like 3 months in different countries. So 3 months in Spain, 3 months in Thailand, 3 months, whatever. As long as you don't spend much time in Canada, you don't
Yeah.
have anything in Canada, only your passport. You never have to give up your passport.
Oh,
Then that would work.
oh, okay. Yeah, I think okay. Now that I understand the full context of what you mean by renouncing it. Yeah, I don't think it's that bad in Canada. At least not yet. I don't know. We'll see. But wow, I didn't realize there was such difference between the U.S. and Canada, and
Yeah.
in how they lock on you for taxes. Best country in the world, indeed. But sheesh, it comes at a cost.
Oh yeah.
Comes at a cost. Man, you dropped so many things that I wanted to dive deep, man, into. My mind is like going at the same time. But let me take a break and give some shout out to James Tony, currently the sponsor of the stream. Doesn't Puerto Rico have a very lax tax laws, relax maybe on crypto? Questions for later, maybe.
I can answer that
Very
very
briefly,
quickly
very
right now.
briefly, yeah.
Yeah, Puerto Rico is a tax haven. They have 0% capital gains, 4% corporate income tax, one of the best places to pay zero tax. The problems is the cons are high. So a lot of people move to Puerto Rico and they realize, oh, the internet doesn't work properly. Some people
E-
don't speak English.
mm.
The prices of food and stuff is insane because they import everything. People
Ooh,
are not the nicest in the world. Yes, it's nice. The beaches are good. Yeah, it's kind of paradisical, but you need to live there 183 days or more per year. You need to buy a home after 2 years. Home prices are insane because so many people are moving there. So there's a lot of
yeah.
cons. So I
Mm.
do recommend some people move to Puerto Rico. Me as a Puerto Rican, I can't do it. If I move back to Puerto Rico, I pay regular tax rates because I'm already Puerto Rican. You need to be a bona fide Puerto Rican, which means you move to Puerto Rico as a U.S. resident or anywhere in the world. You can move to Puerto Rico and then pay 0% basically capital gains or 4% corporate, but you need to live there all the time, like seven
That
months a
sounds
year or more.
that
Yeah.
sounds like unfair. It's kind of like you're saying for regular Puerto Ricans who supposed to own the land, they don't even have the tax benefit that other people are getting from moving in. And I mean, I don't know if I misunderstood what you said, but that's pretty much what I got away from it. Did I got this wrong?
You can pay less taxes than a U.S. resident would in Puerto Rico, but if you want to pay zero, then you need to be
Oh,
a bona fide resident, which means
I
you
see.
haven't been a resident over the last. I'm not 100% sure on this number. I think it's a decade, but I'm not 100% sure on it. Yeah.
No worries, no worries. All right, all right. So I hope that answers the question. Let's go very quickly to another Peter Investor M again. Salute to the guest. What does think of creating foundation for crypto as a as a tax strategy? You probably get this question a lot. I figured, but what are your question very briefly on that?
You can do it, but the problem is foundations. Yeah, it's a gray area, right? So a lot of people from Canada, they tend to create foundations, and they create foundations in Panama, Gibraltar, and zero tax places, places that
Mm.
people typically go for to lower taxes. The problem is the CRA is being very aggressive and looking at these foundations and thinking it's not really a foundation, it's a corporation. And then if you're a Canadian resident, then the company is a controlled foreign company by a Canadian. Therefore, it gets taxed as Canada
Yeah.
rate. So you have to be very careful. Don't just think, oh, I create a foundation, I pull all my crypto through it, I'm not going to pay any taxes. Canada's already figured that out. All these
Mm.
countries, they're figuring it out. They know about it. And you have to do it properly because, well, one, you don't want to fight the CRA or whatever tax authority for your freedom and for like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's a area you want to be very careful with. Better pay up a little bit more and then not be
Yeah.
jailed up.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, you had so many things I wanted to go to, but let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. What are the top three countries to save taxes as a crypto investors? In your
It
opinion,
depends.
in your opinion.
Yeah, it depends on your citizenship. So some citizenships
Hmm.
make some options easier. So if you're an EU citizen, which a lot of Canadians and US citizens, they're dual with Italy, dual with Spain, dual with whatever. In that case, then you can move to countries like Portugal, Malta, Cyprus, that you can pay very little tax, but they're hard to move to if you're a non EU citizen. If you're a non EU citizen, even if you're an EU citizen, but you're just tired of EU, the easiest place is Dubai, UAE, where I live, or I should say where I spend most of my time because I don't really live here 12 months a year. But it's the best place to pay zero tax because there's no accounting, there's no financial reporting. It's a pretty capitalist. It's purely capitalistic. I mean, the more money you have, the better you live. That's just how the world works here. It's you have more money, you're gonna live better. You get in trouble, you pay up. You need something from someone, you pay them, they get it done. It's extremely capitalistic to the purest extent. There's absolutely no socialism aspects here. Like you don't have any money, get out. That's just how it works here, and I love it because it incentivizes. I mean, you see like 10 McLarens running around and like $1 million Bugattis all around, and it basically pushes that culture where people are just, I need to make more money. I saw a yacht the other day. It was like $160 million yacht just chilling there in front of the beach, and you don't see that in anywhere unless you
Yeah.
go to like very expensive parts of the US and there is like all protected and very
Yeah.
very secret
Those-
society. So here
exactly.
it's very openly shown that people have wealth and people spend money. And I think it's definitely the best place. I would say other places that you could consider would be like Cayman Islands, very tax free, well, 100% tax free, but it's just a few islands. The infrastructure is quite good. They speak perfect English. It's a UK territory, so in case everything goes bad, the UK always protects them in case of a war or something. And overall, it's a good place to live in. A lot of networking opportunities, definitely. And other
Yeah.
places that I could think of is places that are almost impossible to become tax resident. So this is a very gray area, and I don't suggest anybody do this, but there are some countries around the world that it's basically impossible for you to pay taxes. Thailand is one of them. Indonesia, it's another one, kind of, because we talked about it on off air. So Thailand, for example, if you want to become tax resident, the only way to do it is by having a business in Thailand or by having a job in Thailand. So if you have none of those, let's say you're running everything through a Dubai company or US company or whatever, and you're living in Thailand all the time, even if you go to the tax office and you say, hey, I'm making $1 million a year, let me pay you taxes, they'll probably say like, yeah, come back after a couple of weeks, we'll think about it. So
Really?
yeah, so it's almost impossible. And I have a few people that live in Thailand for like 3-4 years. They've never paid any taxes because they just won't make them tax resident. So extremely gray area. I don't recommend this to anybody, but
Oh
there are some
man,
countries
very good.
like that. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this: what's the gray area about it? Well, why is it a gray area? Because,
Because
like, for example, if I have my business in Dubai, for example, or Cayman, actually, I don't know if you knew, I bought a property in Cayman Islands, but it's actually not because of tax purpose. I spent like months and months looking for land on top of a mountain like that oversees the like where I can see the sea. I looked everywhere, and turns out I found it, and I trust the people that were building the house around it. It was in the Caymans. I'm like, why not? And I heard later there was tax benefits. I was like, really? Sure. But yeah, why is it a gray area? Because um, well, I'm just curious.
So the tax law says that if you live in any country in the world, or Thailand specifically, if you live up more than 183 days in the year, then you're a tax resident. You need to pay taxes, right? So a lot of countries, most countries, except the US, work like that, where if you live 183 days or 180 days or more, you pay taxes to that country. But there's a lot of countries that, for example, they speak a very hard to learn language, or they just their systems are very bureaucratic, or it's really hard to do anything in the government. And in those systems, for example, the notorious place is Spain, right? Spain is insanely bureaucratic. It takes like a year for somebody to sign a document. And a
Oh
lot of people, they
man.
take advantage of this by living under the radar in Spain. So I know multiple people that live in Spain for the last 5 years. They haven't paid a dime in taxes. They don't exist in Spain. They don't have a Spanish bank account. They don't speak Spanish. They like they're living in Spain. They're completely separated from the Spanish tax system and everything. I would not recommend this. This is a crime. You will probably get arrested at some point, and you will get questioned, and you will have to suffer some things. But some people do it because they take advantage of how the system works. But any place in the world, if you live more than 6 months, 183 days or more, you will pay tax.
Mm.
Or don't live anywhere 183 days a year, just live like 90 days, 120 days, and then have your finances, because you need to have your finances somewhere. You can't just make money by yourself. It's not good to make money as personal income. Like if you're running a consulting business, marketing business, don't take all the money as personal income. Take your money through a corporation somewhere, and that corporation should be based in a zero tax place like Dubai, like Cayman, like there's other places I recommend, but they're much more higher level. So I was talking to a lawyer in Cayman Islands, and he has a client worth about 1.5 billion, something like that. And they have 5 companies all over the world, and they all interact with each other in a way where if there's any mistakes, like it's like a million, $2 million mistake. So they do it extremely carefully. And that applies to people that are making billions. But to people that are probably watching this, just have one little company in one country that's zero tax, and don't complicate your life. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that's another question I wanted to ask. We were talking earlier about cutting ties, right? Sometimes those ties can be a lot harder to do. Like for example, your wife. You may be married. You maybe have children. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you cut those ties? And like, maybe from what you said, it sounded. I mean, maybe I got it wrong, but are you saying like divorce there and then we marry somewhere else, or like what do you mean like cutting ties?
No, just bring her in your suitcase, and that's enough. So
No worries, no worries. I
uh,
get it.
just bring her with you, right? So your whole family needs to move with you, because there's some people, for example, that they do this with Puerto Rico. U.S. residents, they move to the U.S. alone, and then they leave their family, leave everything back in the U.S., and that's probably not going to work. Same with, for example, if you move from Canada to Dubai, but you leave your family behind, your kids are going to school in Canada, you're taking advantage of the healthcare. That's not going to work. They're going to
Mm,
make you pay taxes
of
because,
course.
again, you're not technically deserving what you're getting because you're not paying the tax. So they're going to catch up at some point. They're going to make you pay back taxes.
Yeah, and you don't want to be on those radars, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, great point, great point. So before you were also talking about going to Mexico so that you can actually renounce the US citizenship, and man, I feel your struggle, man, because I didn't know it was this bad. I didn't know it was this bad. Any country in the world except US is like that, but I'm learning today. I'm learning today. If you guys are learning too, make sure hit the like button, guys. Make sure hit the like button or write a comment or something. But let me ask you this, right? If you're renouncing your, I guess, US citizenship, um do you have to at least have another one? Like, are they asking you to at least have another one? And if that's the case, does the citizenship automatically means you have the passport of this country? Can you have the passport just being a resident? And also, and if that's the case, what are the best top 3 you would say countries for passports or for investors or business?
Yeah, citizenship essentially is the right to live in a country with absolutely all rights. You can vote, you can do whatever you want, you can build a house, you can do anything. The passport is just the travel document that you get because you're a citizen.
Okay.
Now, the best citizenships to get are, it depends how much money you have, right? So the more money you have, the more you can do. Because if you have $10 million, then you could buy one of the best passports in the world, which is the Maltese passport, and pay $1 million for it, and then have access to literally all over the world, live in Europe, have access to the US, anywhere you want, and it costs you $1 million in 1 year.
Really?
Or you could get what I got, which is like a St. Kitts passport. It's about 6 month process. But these passports in the Caribbean, they don't have access to the US visa free. They don't have access to Canada, although we're working on it. They don't have access to Australia visa free, right? So you don't have access to some main countries that people are interested in. And unless you care about those countries, I don't care about going back to the US. I lived in New York for a while. I traveled all over the US, had enough, no problem. So if I can't go back, that's fine. If I want to go back hard enough, I'll get a visa to go back. But some of these passports, I mean, if you're announcing US citizenship, you need to have another passport unless you want to be stateless, but probably nobody wants to do that. And then you need that other passport. So the best way is to
Mm,
buy one. Or if you're already living in a place that's going to give you citizenship. So I've had a few people that they're US citizens, but they're married last 3 years with an Australian.
mm,
Get Australian citizenship for sure. Okay,
mm.
it's a super high tax country, but once you get the Australian citizenship, you renounce the US and then you just move out of Australia and done. You don't pay any more tax. And the same thing applies to people that are, for example, living the last 6 years in France. You're entitled to French citizenship. You
Mhm.
could renounce your US citizenship. So there's some people that have different, depending where you are, depending where you are in the world, you have different opportunities. You don't need to actually buy one. So whichever one you're entitled to, or whichever one, for example, your grandparents, maybe your grandparents came from Italy, you prove that they're your grandparents, you prove that they're Italian, you get Italian citizenship. Very easy. Easy. Takes like 6 months and million documents to go through, but it's free, right? It's basically like $1,000. So better do that than pay 150. So depends what options you have. You have, yeah.
Absolutely. Shout out to the best moderator online, Gail at Night. Hey, if you ever want to do a stream one day or you're looking for to hire someone as a moderator, you got to check her out, man. She's literally creating this industry on her own. So shout out to her. And also, yeah, man, I'm learning, man. I'm learning. You're a wealth of knowledge. You are a wealth of knowledge, sir. And with knowledge, guys, you can save a lot of times, and that's why you need to at least get connections. So I definitely recommend you guys to check out his YouTube channel, A Wealthy Expat, for sure. You're going to get more knowledge like that, and I'll get the links as well to your channel, and we'll talk about that at the end too. But a couple things you mentioned I wanted to circle back because as Canadians, I have a Canadian passport, so to me, I don't even think about the visa aspect. It's like I want to travel somewhere. It's like, oh, okay, I'll buy a ticket and it goes there. But I guess when you don't have that passport, then you have to factor in. Okay, so where am I limited from not going, right? And that's from that aspect. That's what you're saying. The Malta passport gives you almost pretty much everywhere, including US, even if you renounce it.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you have to go through a long process of going to an embassy or trying to apply for a visa and so on. Is that correct?
Yeah, that pretty much it. Yeah.
Mm, I get it. So that's interesting. But to get that visa, to get that freedom worldwide, it's $1 million. I
Yeah,
understand.
not worth it for most people. But
Yeah, but no, it's to be honest with you, I'm listening, man. I'm listening. I'm listening because it's something that we never really factor, right? Like it seems that I think the biggest lesson I'm learning from you so far is like every country has their advantage and their inconvenience.
yeah,
Like it's there seems to be not that perfect ideal country. It's like every country seems to have that inconvenience, and whereas hey, if you are in Canada, you get pay high taxes. You have no control on what's being done with your money, but then at least it's easier to live compared to the US. The
yeah,
US is less taxes, a lot of capital, but the healthcare system in the US is very expensive, and like you're limited in your amount to actually leave to go to another country to reduce your taxes. So that's interesting. Shout out to Gail again. Thank you again for providing the links. Thank you very much. And yes, man, that's interesting. So that's a valuable lesson I'm learning from you today. Every country has their pros and cons. And if you had to guess, what would you say is the like inconvenience a little bit from the Malta perspective? Do you actually have to stay there a couple months or a couple year to earn that passport, or you just buy it and then you don't need to buy a house there? Like what are is there any inconvenience altogether, or is it just full paradise, great weather and all?
Yeah, I mean, probably you don't want to live in Malta. So Malta is also a pretty tax-friendly place, but it's very small. I was there for 5 days and I got bored. I mean, it's very simplistic, I should say, and there's a lot of very historical places. So there's, for example, there's one road where you can build, but you cannot change the facade of the building because it's like 800 years old.
Mm.
And there's a lot of places like that in Malta. So it is a great cultural place, great place to visit, but you probably don't want to live there. So that's also something I want to mention, that whenever you're looking at tax-free countries, because you might Google tax-free countries or countries that don't charge taxes,
Yeah.
most of them you probably don't want to live there. I mean, there's one like Bermuda, right? It's an island off the coast of U.S. And it's a place where, sure, some people live there, but you probably don't want to live there if you're coming from a big city like Toronto or New York. You're going to get extremely bored. You're going to want to leave very quickly. Same thing with Puerto Rico. Same thing with other islands like Antigua, also tax-free. Bahamas, also tax-free. There's a lot of places that are tax-free, but you probably don't want to spend your time there. So Malta is great, but not the best place to actually live. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what scares me about Bermuda is one day I want to buy a yacht, and I'm like, well, if I do it, isn't it like a Bermuda to triangle or something? I'm joking. Is my yacht going to sink or something? Who knows? But interesting point. Interesting point. Let me ask you this. Another fun question here. We always hear about because Dubai isn't in a way. Because from what I gather from what you're saying is Dubai seems to be the kind of like most bang for your buck to
Yeah.
get lower taxes, still get actually a good name when it comes to business, right? If you say you have a business in Dubai, I'm sure in Tinder that's something that's going to get people to swipe right on you, right? So so that seems like and business as well, it could be good. But there are other countries too, like Monaco, right? It's the same thing. It's like the cities for the wealthy. What are your thoughts on say on Monaco? And is there any like tax that you can save there for crypto investors?
Monaco is amazing, beautiful, a lot of wealth, but I think it's 2 square kilometers, right? So it's extremely small. I think I walked in 2 hours from the border of Monaco and France to the other border. It's extremely small and it's very hilly, and the streets are weird. And when cars come, Ferrari might hit you on the way because there's no space in between. So some of these places, yes, they're zero tax, absolute paradise, but they're paradise for a specific type of person, right? So if you have a Fiorentini yacht, which is like a 250 feet yacht, it's absolutely massive, and you can live on there. You could just park it in Monaco, live in your 100-meter yacht, go out of Monaco, do a little tour of France and park somewhere else, and then come back, and then you're technically still living in Monaco. But if
Yeah,
you're
that seems to
having
be a
a
good
small,
point. But
yeah, exactly,
I bet you the dog place is very expensive, right? That's
of
pretty much
course, yeah,
yeah. Oh
of
man,
course.
that's probably more expensive than buying a condo there or something.
Yeah, and like the price of property is $65,000 per square meter. So if you want to buy like a room, right, a hotel room, the size of a hotel room, it's 1.3 million, right, for the size of a small hotel room. So you're talking insanely high prices for property. So for ultra wealthy, Monaco is amazing, and I've
Mm,
flirted with Monaco with people that are worth over, I would say, ultra high net worth, right? Over $30 million. I have a few people that are at that level and
mm.
more. And we flirt with Monaco because it is a place that you can go, you deposit 500,000 in the bank, you wait 6 or 9 months, you get a residence permit. You won't become a citizen probably unless the king actually signs you in or the prince signs you in as a citizen. But you can pay zero tax and enjoy a very extremely luxurious lifestyle. But
Wow.
it's reserved for super rich people,
Of course.
not the average entrepreneur. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to hear your opinion on that. But hey, Peter Investor mentioned that he's well traveled. He actually mentioned it earlier that he's 24 now, from 18 to 24, traveled to about 62 countries.
Well,
So
I was traveling before because I used to do judo. It's a
oh,
martial art,
okay.
and they used to ship us to different places to do
Ship.
tournaments and stuff.
Come on, man. You're not shipping you. But make sure you subscribe to his channel too. He has a wealth of knowledge there too. Make contents about how you best places you can go to save taxes legally. and save on taxes legally, and also, yeah, if you're, especially if you're a crypto investors as well. And let me move into the other questions, because I got some questions for you. Now let me ask you this, right? You mentioned, you talk a lot about Caribbeans, tax benefits, and one thing I love a lot, right, in the, not necessarily in the US, I'm not in the US, I'm in Canada, is access to the markets, right? The stock market, 500, the top 500 companies in the world. There's a lot of innovative companies about to be listed and all that. What are your thoughts on that? Like, is if I renounce, let's say, my Canadian citizenship to allow myself to go somewhere else, um, like, will I still be able to invest in the stock market if I'm elsewhere? Let's say Dubai, for example. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you're never renouncing Canadian citizenship. You're renouncing Canadian residence,
Right,
because
right.
even if you do that, you can still invest everywhere. And if you can't, then all you do is you create a USLC and then you invest through the US company, because now you technically have a US company. And the company doesn't pay any tax because you're a non US citizen. So there's ways. I mean, it's not like, oh, I'm going to leave Canada and then I won't be able to have my stocks. No, you can just transfer them. So I have a guy that's worth about 50 million moving from Canada to Ecuador for some reason. And they moved to like this little town in the mountains in Ecuador. And they were trying to move all their stocks, and they just created a new account from Ecuador with a US company, moved all the stocks, paid an exit tax, because in Canada you need to pay an exit tax to get out of Canada. And that was it. Yeah, they just moved to Ecuador. So no
Mm.
problem.
Talking about paying taxes to leave, do I, let's say, for example, I have stocks, I have cryptos too. Some of them I'm trading, some of them I'm holding long terms, some of them I really don't want to sell, some of them I can't sell even if I wanted to, because I locked them. But would I be, if I have to live? Is that something that I will have to pay taxes on, even though I don't want to sell them? Can I transfer them and pay taxes on that anyway? Like, um, what are your thoughts on that, very quickly?
They can be transferred, but you pay capital gains. So you pay the capital gains on that day. So that's why I sometimes tell people, like, let's say you're a crypto investor and now you're worth maybe a million, 1.5 million, and crypto crashes and you're worth 500,000, 600,000. Leave at that point,
Mm.
pay the capital gain or maybe even capital loss or whatever, get out, and then appreciate everything else tax free.
Oh, that's
So
a good
that,
advice right there, man. Man,
because
guys, I don't know if you know this guy, but this right here, man, this is gold, man. This is pure gold right here. Like, I wouldn't even think about that, but that right there, it's, you can move it to a ledger. You do it legally. You know the market. If you know, understand how to time the market, you know how to do it. And that's something that I actually teach in one of my course. You guys know how to do it. You move it away, and then you keep loading on a different place. And at that moment, it's all profit, no tax. Man, that's gold right here, man. That is gold. Thank you for sharing that. And again, make sure you connect to this YouTube channel, guys. Yell at night on the chat, keeping them honest. Make sure you also hit the like button. Oh, here's my guy right here, Cash Flow Hunter. I'm sure you'll catch the beginning of the stream, but he was the inspiration for this stream. This guy, he only subscribed to me to understand how to save taxes. Taxes is his worst enemy. He found you on YouTube. He shared me videos from you, and I said, I gotta connect with this guy, and that's how we met. And I'm happy. Thanks to Cashflow Hunter for making it happen. So yeah, this stream is honored to you, man. Now let me go back to some other question I had for you. Is one of the things I care a lot about is, I know, as a Canadian, that's one thing we do have on our favor, is the healthcare system, right? And the American system, they have a lot of tax benefits, but their healthcare system is quite expensive. If we're thinking about losing the residency, access to that healthcare, going to other places, what are we talking about here in terms of access to quality healthcare and price? Like, what would you say? That's something that I'm very curious to hear. Like Dubai, for example. Let's start with Dubai and maybe Malta or any other good top countries that you can recommend to set up this system for.
most countries, they have doctors that are trained in other places. So for example, in Dubai, you don't have doctors trained in Dubai, you have doctors trained in Canada, in the US, in the UK, or people that come from those countries and they move to Dubai for tax reasons because they're making a lot of money. And here, doctors can make a serious amount of money. And essentially, it's expensive, right? So it's not free, that's for sure, because you don't pay any tax and there's no socialism. So socialism doesn't exist here. Therefore, it's going to be expensive. The more you pay, the more you get. Healthcare overall, it's not super expensive. So I went to the doctor a couple of days ago, regular checkup. It was $150 for the checkup. And then for any treatment that I paid on top of that, it was like $100. So it's not super expensive. Obviously, it's not free. It's not super cheap. But there are places that are cheaper. So in Malaysia, for example, which is a place that attracts a lot of people to lower tax, you can lower taxes a little bit high, but you can lower taxes there. I know Andrew from Nomad Capitalist. He talks about Malaysia a lot. Healthcare in Malaysia is really good and cheap. So you can go to a checkup and pay $5, $10. So there are countries around the world where healthcare is really good, top quality. You're going to get the best doctors, but the cost is not that high. So there's many countries around the world with really good healthcare. Dubai, Malaysia, I would say Europe, hit or miss. I would say Portugal is definitely a great place to get healthcare. Other places like Cayman Islands have great healthcare because a lot of good doctors there.
Wait a second. So Portugal, good for tax and good for healthcare too. The language. It's man.
No, people speak English. It's just if you want to get into it, that's the hard part. And it's good for tax, but if you're like a crypto trader or a sole proprietor and you move to Portugal, you can apply for a 10-year tax exemption, 10-year tax vacation. The problem is that now that you're living in Portugal, your income is technically sourced from Portugal because you're the source of your income. And Portugal is catching up to this because there's a lot of people moving to Portugal, making a bunch of money, and then not really paying any tax because their income is technically not sourced from Portugal. But if you're in Portugal and you're the source of your income, then it's Portuguese source. So they're taxing a lot of people, specifically high activity crypto investors, because crypto is not taxed in Portugal, but crypto investing is not taxed in Portugal, not income generating from crypto activity. So if you do yield farming every day, staking every day, day trading like 10 times per day, that's Portugal is going to want to tax that at some point.
Wait. Actually, shout out to Maki. I know he's going to watch this. This guy's, well, in my Discord, his name is Maki Farm. He's like a yield farmer. We kind of like pretty much degenerate crypto investors at this point. Interesting. Wait a second. So, although Portugal is not taxing in cryptocurrencies for farmers, it is because the fact that you're adding more into that liquidity pool, for example, that's considered a trade?
No, not a trade. It's just constant activity. So it's not really investing. It's more just crypto work that you're doing every day. And it's technically personal income. Therefore, they will want to tax it. And it's EU. That's the problem with the European Union is that there's always regulations. There's always because people move from Spain to Portugal to pay zero tax. And then Spain bullies Portugal and says hey, if you don't increase your taxes or you don't catch these people, then we're going to, I don't know, not sanctions, but just pressure from the government. The EU overall is a place where it's not really long-term for tax benefits. Yes, there's a lot of tax benefits place, but the EU might at some point come up with an EU global tax where wherever you go, if you're an EU citizen, you pay taxes. So Germany is already starting to do that. And the European Union will have it at some point. So that's why I also like Dubai, because it's completely separated from all these unions and all these. Yeah, pretty much.
Oh yeah, by the way, these comments will come up all night long, man. But like I said, man, at least we're getting solution, cash flow hunter. Chill. but a fun question for you from Mr. Peter Investor. I mean, thank you for your question, guys. Very very briefly, did you travel to the Maldives?
Yeah, I've been there. I've been there 3 times. It's paradise, and I wanted to be a citizen because I started doing some TikTok videos and I got kind of famous in the Maldives. So people were coming up to me like, "Oh, you're that guy from TikTok," and I was like, "Yeah."
Oh,
so
nice.
I went to one of the offices and I asked, "How can I get citizenship in the Maldives?" And they said, "You need to be Muslim, live here 10 years, and then completely give up everything you have all around the world and just be Maldivian." And I said, "Okay, that's a little stupid."
Yeah.
So I didn't do it, but I love Maldives. One of the best countries on earth to spend time, not to live, because living there is terrible. It's just a few paradisical islands. So after 7 days, you think, okay, what do I do? Like there's nothing here. But to be there a week, it's the best.
Absolutely. Let me throw this question right here from Cashflow Hunter. Can one have two citizenship and decide to place of it and decide the place of income? Example. Oh, I see. I see. Being Canadian, but deciding that income is from Portugal. Like, let's say, for example, you had two citizenship. One is from Portugal. One is from Canada. Can you decide which one it is? I guess you just have to move on your business. But your points on that? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it depends where you live. So you could be Canadian living in Portugal, and then you would pay Portuguese taxes, not Canada taxes. So it's not like I've had some people tell me this where it's like, what if I live in Spain, but I register in Estonia, and then I say that I'm paying tax in Estonia? I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna work, man. It's not that easy to be like, I'm deciding to get taxed in another country. It's more about
Hmm.
where you live. So where you're spending your time more than 6 months, that's where you're paying taxes.
So basically, that's how you choose. You choose by where you live, and then that's where you go. And
Exactly.
he explained that in the beginning as well, and he dropped so much knowledge. I'm actually going to have to repeat that back and catch more gems. But thank you for your question here. And maybe a one fun question. I know you're a young guy, right? You're on TikToks. Let me ask you this. No, I'm currently married right now. You know how this thing goes, right? You never know. What would you say is a good kind of like bang for your buck when it comes to saving taxes? And we're traveling around the world, so you know how as men, we're looking for beautiful women out there. So what would you say is a good place to have like beautiful women and save taxes? So kind of like the best of both worlds.
Depends what you like. So I like Dubai. I,
Yeah.
I was married for 2 years to a Ukrainian girl that I met in Ukraine. And my type of woman is Slavic. So Ukrainian, Russian, Polish, Czech. I really like this type of woman. And here there's a lot of them. There's so many Russians here. I speak Russian so I can communicate with them. And it's a great place for me. But if you're looking for Latino women, for example, not many of them in Dubai. So you
Mm,
probably want to spend some time in Mexico, Colombia, right? And that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for Asian women, then you maybe want to go to a place like Malaysia or
mm.
Singapore, where it attracts a lot of very well off women there, and or Thailand. Thailand's it's a hot spot. One of my friends moved to Thailand, found a Thai wife, now has a Thai child. So it depends what type you have, what kind of woman you like, because Dubai is sort of like a melting pot, like a New York or a Miami. Although Miami is mainly Latino, Dubai is mainly, there's a lot of Indian people. I don't like Indians, but there's a lot of them here. And then, not any Indians watching, I don't like Indian women, how they look, not Indian
Yeah,
people in
yeah, I
general.
got it. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
gee,
And
they got
then
no love. Hey, I love you girls, man. I love Indian girls. So you come my way. I'm married right now, right? But you know what I mean. So
And yeah, and if you're looking, for example, for African girls, there's a lot of them
really,
in Dubai because it's so close and they all come here.
oh
And
really?
yeah, Philippines also a great place for dating. I've heard it's amazing. So I would say, don't pick a place because of dating. I would say pick a place because of taxes and then travel to other places that are good for dating. Because I traveled to Ukraine because I really like Ukrainian women. I'm probably not going to live in Ukraine. They have like a semi war with Russia. And
Yeah, yeah.
so pick your places. They don't have to be all the time, right? I mean,
Of course, of course.
yeah.
Yeah, just a fun question right here and there. Let me see. You pretty much answer all the questions I had. Before I ask you the last question, do you guys have any questions in the chat for Mr. Wealthy Expat? His times is very valuable. I made sure that I wanted to keep his time short. So if you have any question, throw them very quick. I'm going to ask him the last question before I close the show. And thank you guys for coming here as well because it's fairly late around here. I normally do this stream around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but I had to do it later because I wanted to do it live to give you guys a chance to ask your questions. And we're learning a lot, lots of gems. I can't actually wait to rewind it back so I can learn a lot more. Question from Peter Investor M. Uh, what it, uh, what are your thoughts on actually investing in Africa? Actually, I think that's what he means. What are your thoughts on investing in Africa? Any thoughts on that, or what have you heard anything about tax benefits, maybe, or for investors? Any insight on that?
I want to go more to Africa. I've only been to, I mean, Egypt, but it's not really Africa. So I want to go to Rwanda, Seychelles, Mauritius, Réunion, which is an island part of France. It's in Africa. Cape Verde, uh, Namibia. There's a few countries that I have on my list. I mean, the problem with Africa is it's hard to travel through it. The infrastructure is not good enough yet, and also the vaccines that you need to get, because you need to have an international vaccination certificate for a lot of these places. And
Mm,
I would do that, but yeah, I don't. I'm still working that out, how to do that. And now there's a lot of countries in Africa that are completely banned from places like Dubai. So, for example, if you're from, I think it's Kenya, not Kenya or Nigeria, I don't know, one of these big African countries, there's a travel ban to Dubai. So you can only get into Dubai by going to Qatar, and then from Qatar you can go to Dubai. But I don't want to go through that just to check out a new country. So I'm waiting until it's easier to travel to Africa. And I also don't want to travel on a US passport because they try to scam you in some places when they see a US passport. So I'm going to travel on my St. Kitts passport, and I need the visas to go through it. And
mm,
then the last thing was, I don't think it's there yet for investing. Investing in Africa, it can be extremely high reward, but it's also high risk because there's so many different countries, and all these countries have, like, Nigeria has how many, 200 million people, and it has like 10 mega cities. Like it's a lot of places to invest. How do you pick the one? And there's not like YouTube videos about it, so it's tough to pick one. And I've heard pretty bad things about investing in some place like Nigeria or Kenya. So I'm looking
mm.
at it. I would say not yet. Yeah, maybe 5 or 10 years from now, I would do it,
Yeah.
but I don't want to visit. That's for sure.
Yeah, me too. Just to give you some insight, I actually did a stream with someone who did start a business. He's living in China actually, but yeah, he started a business in Africa as well. Somewhere I forgot the country name, but shout out to he knows who. We ain't signing ish. He knows who. And then yeah, he talks a lot about that. And apparently there is, like you said, a lot of high risk but high rewards. But one of the things that he actually suggested was you bring your own team, right? You know, you create your teams elsewhere. Like you have your marketing, your supply chain, and all that, and then you bring that into Africa, and that way, yes, you'll find a lot of place, and you can do the contracts based on US laws, for example. That way, if something happens, then it's a US court that has to deal with that. But he talks more about US citizen, but some cool insight anyway. And yeah, that me honestly, I'm very curious. That's going to be my next phase. Once I get to a level in my portfolio I'm comfortable with, I think I'm going to take like a couple times and travel that and find opportunities. That's something I'm looking forward to. So shout out to, I see more questions coming in before we close. Let me see. Aaron B throw that out at 1 a.m. and 11 a.m. Interesting. Is it the on is this only for US and Canada, or does it include UK as well? So I think you mentioned that earlier in the streams. Anywhere else other than US, you can you can renounce your residency, not your citizenship, to avoid tax. But if you are in the US, you're locked with that citizenship, and no matter wherever you go in the world, you'll be taxed unless you renounce that citizenship from the US. So you mentioned that earlier, but you guys can get more details if you replay it later. And make sure you hit the like, and as you watch the replay, write a comment as well for the algorithm. Let me see Cash Flow Hunter very quick. Um, I think did I mention that earlier? No. If I am in Canada and Portugal, what are the means that the government will use to verify that I live in Canada rather than Portugal?
I mean, there will. So if I am in Canada, what are the means that the government use to verify that I live in Canada? Well, your lease, bank accounts, bank statements, bank, let's say, documents saying that you're using that card in different places, where you're using it, your kids, where do they go to school,
Mm,
where you have your wife, where does she work, where's your income mainly, like based in terms of company. So either Portugal or Canada. Those are all the different ties. So where do you live? Where does your family live? Where's your finances? And that's
Tracking
pretty
the
much
money
it.
wiring system
Yeah,
too. That's
that's
one
pretty
of
much
the
it.
That's one of the easiest ways. Shout out to you, OG Patrice. And again, Gail, thank you for the moderation and the chat. J Bones, how are you doing? How are you doing? It's my African brother right here.
Yeah,
Kenya,
high
high
risk,
risk,
high
high
reward.
reward. When
I
you're all
agree.
the same.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But yeah, let me see very quickly before we ask the last question. Can I buy crypto in Canada and make the withdrawal in Portugal so that yeah. Um so I think he mentioned that earlier. I asked him a question very similar to that. And from what, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, wealthy expat, but from basically from what he said was um when you, if you to the legal way to do is you pay tax as you're leaving in the country on that day. So if you want to transfer it, you transfer it to your, let's say, your ledger account that is in Portugal, but you pay the tax on that day on Canada, and then after you can withdraw it whenever you want. So that if you want to withdraw it to in the next day or next year, that's up to you, but you have to at least pay the taxes on a capital gain perspective for it to be legal. And but once you do that, it's over, and then you can do whatever you want later. So one fee, that's it. You get your freedom. Uh, see it as way, right? See it that way. Let me see. Anything else you wanted to chime in on that?
No, the only thing is don't confuse buying crypto in one country where you live, sending it to another country where you're a citizen of, and then pretending that you don't need to pay tax on it. So if you're a dual citizen, Canada, Portugal, you're living in Canada, you buy the crypto in Canada, send it to Portugal, sell it in Portugal. That doesn't mean you pay tax in Portugal. You're paying tax in Canada because you're living in Canada. So be careful with this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, a passport number, a tax ID. That's how they can track you too. Yeah, J Bones is very knowledgeable on that perspective. He travels a lot too. I know he travels a lot. Okay, so I know we're running up on an hour. One last question I had for you. Let's say, because sometimes it is much cheaper to rely on someone's experience as opposed to me trying to figure it out all on my own, trying to learn from trial and error, and sometimes it could be a lot costly that way. It could save me some time, but later it could cost me more in time and money. So let's say I wanted to rely on someone's experience to guide me through that process. And I was interested, for example, in Dubai. What would you say, like, is a good way to start? Like, is it a lot of money, or like, what are we talking about here? Let's say I was interested to start. What for the average person, for example?
Mainly all setups all over the world. We do multiple countries. Mainly we focus on Dubai because it's the easiest and fastest one or most efficient for tax reasons. But we do many different countries. Typically the starting price is around 15,000 US. So like 18, 19 Canadian for every single process. And then it can go up to 25,000 US depending how many people. So if you're bringing 3 kids, then it's going to be much more expensive than one person coming alone. So I would
Mm.
say in that range, 15 to 25K, and it's worth it for people that are paying more than that in taxes every year, or you're thinking that you're going to make much more than that later on and you want to prepare now. So if you have 15 to 25K, you can get the full setup, absolutely 0% tax with your company, with an ID in Dubai, bank accounts, everything that you need, as well as other countries. So we can manage the whole thing for you. You can go to Wealthy Expat Call, CALL, wealthyexpatcall.com, and in that website you can book a call with me. It's for free. The call is free. We get on a one-on-one call. Right now, my schedule next 5 days is fully booked out. So if you don't see any queries, another YouTuber mentioned me, and basically my schedule is like calls every single 30 minutes I have. So
Oh man.
I'm fully booked out. But if you wait about 2 to 3 more days, you'll see more spots. Book a call there. Talk to me one-on-one, and then we figure out what place is the best for you and what cost it'll be for you specifically. But in that range, 15 to 25.
I understand. I understand. For me, man, I feel right in that steps. Like my portfolio, I see it and I see the potential. I'm doing the back market research, and I'm like, okay, I need to have a plan B set up right away. So when let's say I would go through that process. Let's say from I fall right in the middle, right, 20, 20K. So what does that mean? Is that like a service where keys in is in the hands? I just pay the for service and that's it, or like is there a lot of process and time that has to go along the way? Like what are we talking about here in terms of how it works?
Well, whichever country you choose, you will need to come here. So if you choose Dubai, you'll need to come here for about 20 days. But we manage everything for you. I do it directly with the government, or we do it directly with somebody that is an authority to register a company. So, for example, in Dubai, I work directly with the government people and I register your company. If you're doing something like in Portugal, you need sometimes a lawyer to get you a tax number. I have a lawyer that does that and she gets you a tax number. So depending on the country where we choose, we have somebody that's an authority that can do it, or we do it directly. And you do need to come here for about 20 days. Portugal, I would say you need to be there for like a month or 2 months. And then if you're actually going to live in Portugal, then obviously move to Portugal directly. And then you basically don't do anything. You just give us your information. We do it all and we take care of the whole process, completely hands off. And if you want VIP processing as well, some of our clients, I mean, they're worth like hundreds of millions and they really don't want any delays. Like a 1 day delay is a problem. So we do VIP, which is like extra processing.
Yeah. All right, all right. Well, that's good to know. To be honest with you, I'm very interested. I was already doing the work. I mean, again, I accidentally do the work because I got it into the Cayman, and I'm like, well, since I have a Cayman land, may as well as do something. But there is something that I heard from one of your videos that say, hey, we if you buy a Cayman Island and I move my business there, I'm always going to have that label, right? That whole Cayman is a tax event. That's where people go and avoid taxes, right? Especially in Canada, that's a label you don't really want to have. And whereas Dubai, right? People don't necessarily see Dubai as a tax haven. They see it as, oh my God, this is the world of the rich. There is so much wealth there. If you have a business associated with that, then that's good for business too. And from that perspective, I was looking into it. I'm like, that's interesting. That's interesting. So thank you very much for coming on the panel on wealth engineering, and thank you for the knowledge. If you guys missed it, make sure you rewind it back. Is you drop a lot of knowledge at the beginning. You get to know him. We covered a lot of questions, and the links as well will be in the descriptions. Kagel is automatically on it. I'm telling you, best moderator online, automatically on it. And as he mentioned, he's fully booked. But if you want to have a call, I actually had a call with him too personally, so we can go over it. Great service. I recommend his work. With that said, thank you very much. I'll close the stream, but give me a second and we'll brief up very quickly.
Awesome.
Any,
Thank you for
any
having me
last
here.
before we walked up?
No, just let me know if you have any questions. If you go to that link that Gail posted, there's also my number, 971. That's the code for Dubai. You can send me a message on WhatsApp or Telegram, and then just send me a message there, and then we can book a call later on, because right now it says no times, but it's really no times in the next 5 days. So just send me a message. We'll book a call at some other point.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you very much. Give me a second. I'm going to close the stream right away, and then we'll brief up very quickly.
Awesome.
All right, guys, that was it. One of the best stream I've ever done in terms of knowledge and gems dropped. That's what I'm looking to do in this channel moving forward, is invite people with that has a lot of knowledge that they can transfer to us. And if in your journey, in your financial journey, you find the need to get, it's not about making the money, it's about keeping that money as well. And one of the major aspects of keeping money is taxes. It's probably going to be the largest expenses you're going to have. So if you could manage that aspect alone, it keeps you so much more money that you can keep in your pocket, that you can reinvest that and multiply that even faster. So eventually as you start your financial journey, that you will have to encounter that. You will have to think about that. Once you start making a lot of money, you notice the importance of reducing your taxes legally as much as possible. So if these is things that interest you, if you are young, if you can travel, if you are single, these are things that you might want to consider and evaluate all options before you make your decision that could be life altering, right? For me, I'm looking at my portfolio and I know that I have to deal with it, but that's why I'm doing the work now, and I'm very happy that we were able to talk to Wealthy Expat from that perspective. But with that said, guys, stay tuned for the next stream. Thank you for everyone that was in the chat, your questions. Thank you for the super chatters and the sponsor of the stream. Shout out to you also, Mr. Peter, Investor M. And with that said, guys, we'll meet on the next one.
Hey, yeah, it's all about wealth engineering. Might be something that you're not used to. It's okay, cause I'm here to introduce you to concepts, time to grow and make big moves. All about crypto, come see. Stocks and business, yes indeed. Got the info that you need. Hosted by my homie JC. Hey, yeah, wealth engineering. Stacking and stacking it up. It's time to generate wealth. Till you living like Scrooge McDuck.